The Anunnaki and the Sagittarius galaxy have relented and will allow the hierarchy intervention in Earth deep state mafia interdiction. The news today is of a miracle of universe intervention in a local galactic matter, that of human soul trafficking and human DNA retrofitting to pursue super soldier robotics, both of which are unlawful under the Law of One and Prime directives. It is Friday, February 16th, 2019, so they say. And I'm Emily Craig with this week's Space News Report. Now we know why nothing anyone says to President Trump ever hits a mark. His spirit has been fortified by higher minds, as time will tell. President Trump has been downloading very subtle and complex guidance, and he seems to have accepted it by the Archangel Emmanuel in order to prosecute Guantanamo trials. It appears that all criticism just rolls off Trump's back like water off a duck. Certainty and justice are possible, and leadership by terror will not be the path of the West any longer, since they've been under Babylonian and Tartarian Empire rule baiting if Trump's indictments hit their marks. The possessing spirit is Emmanuel, a Hebrew seraph, who is also managing the affairs of Israel, also run by Babylonian Tartarian factions. Emmanuel has been in on the covenants of the age of Pisces and Moses and the Hebrews since their inception. Next slide, please. Angels who do go to war follow Lucifer's example without regard to the Law of One or the Prime Directive. What we see, those of us who look into the depredation of history and information about Tartary, is that their world before the 1947 reset was very strict and harsh, with occult symbols and occult architecture. A great many prisons per capita. They wore black and observed occult ritual. Next slide, please. Tartary was Anunnaki Babylonian culture, teaching scapegoating and sacrifice of dissidents to enlarge their empire. Both the Bible and Quran contain their dogma of opinion controls and sacrifice that violate universal law. Their flags bear double-headed eagles depicting double thinking to right and to left. They believe, as a superior race, they have the right and duty to cull inferior races, and Tartar conquest of nations has been proverbial until the 1800s, when they sank out of sight under mud. The reset event had to do with a prophecy at Genesis 3:15, in which the world sovereign swore he would remove double-thinking sacrifice rituals of the innocent from this world. But that goal is yet to be realized. Slide, please. In the age of Pisces, Anunnaki and Christos founders under the Elanu Treaty believed that ethnic cleansing was permitted under superior races versus inferior races terms and conditions of the treaty, which was a local galactic treaty. But the universe at large adheres to no such principle of differentiation in race. Only by behavior is anyone condemned for anything. Tartary was a culture in which imprisoning and sacrificing nonconformists was routine. What has happened here is that behavior of elite and superior races has deteriorated to the point they are polluting not only this galaxy, but Sagittarius as well, with their commerce in human trafficking, drug trafficking, soul trafficking, and weapons trafficking. And so a higher authority are stepping in to correct what the galactic authorities have twisted to their own commercial advantage and greed. At Universe 1, this is now the age of Aquarius since December the 12th, 2012. This is an age of peace, and yet, if you listen, there are still strident elite plans to reset and depopulate innocent citizens and animals and life forms on this world. They think they're going to take this world to the fifth dimensional frequency, where the frequency is so high it will actually obliterate most of the natural world. That will not do. And so Universe 1 karma bureaucrats have contacted a US president by the mind, and they are compelling him to indict and charge members of that superior race who commit genocide, omnicide, treachery, treason, sedition, and mockery under the color of law. They are met in turn by the code of military justice. The effects on life. What happens to ordinary people in such a situation in which we are all attacked from all sides? It freaks people out because there's no way to be safe. There's no security, no place to hide from an empire that's suiciding its own people. Left brain dominant individuals, who are mostly male, just check out mentally. There's no way to fix this that anybody knows. They'll find a way to get out of it. Right brain dominant individuals, who are mostly female, will obsess mentally over internal conditions and details around themselves. Since there's no way to fix anything, maybe we can find something here to make a difference. Any population goes nuts, and it's quite understandable when people know that they don't know how to survive. Fight or flight sets in. And in such a time and condition, the people who work and strive to survive are not the ones to blame for what is going on here. The United Nations and the Globalist Party, and in condemning mankind for corporate and elitist greed, have condemned themselves as well. The original Anu Treaty stated, and I'll quote here, Anunnaki were to do their bioregenesis outside the Emerald Covenant. The stipulations in which were that no racial or physical bioregenesis development was to be permitted whatsoever, that races were and are sacrosanct, with superior races and inferior races, with ideological purity and a hierarchical and bureaucratic system of influence that guarantees top-down leadership. The El-Anu Agreement was precedent for today's practice by Alpha Draconis, Orion, and Greys of abducting and utilizing humans and their genomes for their own DNA repair. The abductions problem. There we go. That agreement has never been rescinded, despite outcomes of suffering and woe that humans experience from it, because the Christos founders still insist on racial purity. The way this insistence plays out is that civil society based on Christos founders cull non-conforming hybrids. There is no such thing as racial tolerance. Emerald Covenant races became the founders of Anunnaki Illuminati doctrines of genocide against racially mixed divergent peoples, permissive ideologies, and dissident individuals. And the addition of the individuals from the domain starship crash, who were exceedingly old souls and exceedingly intelligent, has meant that the ruling elites operate at an intellect level which is an order of magnitude greater than most of the rest of humanity. This too is a problem to be addressed. The rationale for gods to exterminate evolved souls is that they are troublemakers. Therefore, the balance of population will conform and experience peace, but the outcome is terror and tyranny, because no one dares quibble nor question anything. In the founders' model, whole populations are taken out whose belief systems are harmless, even 11th and 10th density hominid souls, merely out of the founders' preferences for racial and ideological purity. Racial purity is impossible in a diverse realm such as we live in. So violating this treaty for the past 600,000 years, the Anunnaki face hostility from the Christos founders because they have been lax in pursuing it. And they face sanctions by Harmonious Universe 1 for violating its terms and conditions. Thus, Anunnaki have and are being smacked down by the law of karma. Now, human and galactic authorities are going to be overruled and removed who believe they can simply wipe out innocent populations. And in this slave reality, debt slavery and mental slavery have become practically the only experiences that ordinary souls obtain. Okay, next, please. However, we are now in the age of Aquarius, wherein the prime directive and law of one apply once more. There's no justification for a worldwide reset to take down innocent populations where the leadership has been practicing rule or ruin and set itself to lead against humanity. Rule or ruin infects the entire galaxy at this time, and as it's set by secret space program policies, it will infect all the galaxies. Deep state mafia must be halted here once and for all time. Due to the victimization of whole populations, only the leadership need be removed by due process and the pursuit of civil peace. The universe has a remedy. There are a surprising number of military indictments, numbering into the thousands, having been prepared, and these will require a couple or several years to prosecute. In the process, the mainstream media will fall and crash as its oligarchs are in among the indictments at play. The New World Order is demonstrably, by its methods, amoral, mercenary, and predatory, a hierarchy by its ways and means of control and coercion. It must not be allowed to stand if justice with fairness is ever to prevail on this world. Does this every time. Academia and the education process are going to have to be decapitated of their fascist Satanist influences. Reforming these disciplines along the line of truth and wisdom must take place. There are a lot of fables that they teach in place of what's true in the physical sciences. Health and medical sciences must likewise be corrected to remove experimenting in genetic mutations, technical and chemical transhumanist programs, chemical reagents that attack DNA in human and animal bodies, profiteering on disease, and monopolizing cures must also be terminated with antitrust legislation. Next slide, please. Basically, the universal mandate to create life forms is not allowed by treaty to be taken over by commercial interests, nor by ideological nor political interests. These commercial practices must be halted at all levels of soul existence in human trafficking. They act as if human beings were cattle chattel for sale, as if body parts were merchandise, as if souls could be captured and sold off to keep other souls going. This is the epitome and the very depths of evil. So Trump is correct. Human trafficking is the crime that must be taken out of practice, top down, everywhere, so souls do not live in perpetual terror. Tartary's history was deleted because it was a terrorist society in which everyone who wasn't in the primary bloodline ended up in prison, not unlike the 2 million people in prison in the United States today, which is a larger percentage than imprisoned even in China. The mud flood was an apocalypse to destroy slavery, but it popped right up again as investment capital and global empire, what historians call the robber barons. We all know there is more life than just here. We all know there is life out there too. Since other ETs are real, we can conclude that Yahweh, the Hebrew planetary sovereign, is real, as are Allah and Lucifer and Satan and so on. They are real characters. They're telepathic beings with powerful manifesting minds, which we can emulate and someday even capture ourselves. The fact none of today's leadership has kept up with wholly inspired books that chronicle human history relative to the upper cosmos says that leadership here is entirely secular and renegade, and that it must be removed down to the last cynic, the last nihilist, and the last materialist who act as if there is no such thing as accountability, me too, me only, you know what I mean? After all, life begins in the non-material realms, and third-dimensional physical reality constitutes the template for what is possible at higher realms. Destroy the third density template, and all creation loses its bearings and its models. On the indictments, they are real. Trump is being driven and directed by the former world sovereign, Yahweh, to carry through with these crimes against life and humanity, which is the sovereign's job after all. You know, Christian pastors laying their hands and praying over Trump's decisions make a difference. If you are into the New Age order, you know that group meditations make a difference. Well, the effect is to invoke the planetary sovereign Yahweh, whose angelic core still operate a bureaucratic hierarchy over information. Whether most people think so or not, Akashic records are still being kept so that the law of karma can operate. Trump is not acting on any reptilian initiative, but on the angelic initiatives. Effects of culling innocent peoples concern that we lose their social templates for higher frequency dimensions, social templates of peace-abiding and resource-conserving peoples who do not harm anyone. Examples are hybrid Inuit and indigenous tribes who have one foot in their ancient traditions and another in modern technological society. Eradicating successful cultures is a very bad idea. And that is the firm conviction of Harmonious Universe 1 and most other galaxies. We can pursue prosecuting the guilty, and the guilty are those who follow unjust treaties, unlawful in their universe and in most galaxies. Divisions violate the prime directive. Isms do this. Jesuitism and Calvinism and Masonry and Knights of Malta and Islamism and Zionism and globalism and communism, all of these in the same manner as IT professionals everywhere collect data related to the destruction of innocent martyrs and the even more innocent realm of nature's animals, birds, plants, and insects. Accountability for plastic and chemical pollution, nuking of whole populations, engineered diseases, and genetic alterations caused by vaccines cannot simply be ignored. New Age philosophy has studiously avoided confronting and addressing problems in its wake, particularly in secret societies, masonry, and occult ritual affiliations. Since 1965, when churches became vulnerable to 501c3 tax penalties, churches have retreated from problem solving in the large domain of national political action. Instead, churches have tried to force their doctrines and dogmas upon unwilling populations. And at the same time, perpetrators of physical and social harm, corporations, defense contractors, third-party research institutes, and non-governmental think tanks have been funded and have taken initiatives to breach ideological streams, run roughshod over other whole allowing corporate color of law to dominate national issues, to indemnify industrialists from the harm, the bribery, and the political rigging they have been party to. Okay, next slide, please. Whoops. At the same time, well, I've got that too. The time to have hooks placed in their jaws and brought to justice has come. This mischief by the elites began in the 1200s when the Verona Treaty was crafted to make the Pope the owner of all the souls on this world. That treaty must be abrogated and abolished in all its current forms and formats, including the Griata and the Tau 9 and the TPP. A new treaty between humanity and other members of the galaxy must be founded out of a commitment to immutable laws and the necessity of dealing with voluntary contracts. Last slide, please. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for the people of good conscience to remain silent. My comment to David Wilcock is, come on, you guys, you got to get some teeth. The way this will play out is if the legal profession itself, as it stands, becomes accountable for what law rationalizes or panders to, the damage. The accounting profession itself, as it stands, must become accountable for the effects of the common practice of maximizing profits without commensurate recording of real environmental and personal costs of doing business. By hiding the costs, we have multiplied waste. The IT profession itself, as it stands, is not yet accountable for the common practice of segregating information away from the public that is essential for life itself. It makes no judgment whatsoever. Its practice is to merely record whatever there is, garbage in, garbage out, without regard to the reality that it represents. IT is blind, thus AI is blind, stupefied, and unable to track actual human and spirit human events, causes, and effects. Binary digital is incapable of capturing life because life is analog. This has been Emily Windsor reporting on the matter of exopolitical influence on the human realm we know as Earth. Perhaps the fact, since 2003, when most of the acts of genocide and reset were supposed to have occurred, the fact that Armageddon has not occurred is a miracle itself and an act of sovereignty in which justice with fairness can occur and not merely revenge. Essentially, the law of one has an alliance movement, and instead of merely jawboning metaphysical doctrine, the alliance movement needs to develop some teeth, some problem analysis, and some organizational skills around human and social problem solving that it doesn't presently realize or advocate. And so this is my hope for the future, that the New Age movement is going to step forward with some new skills to help solve and resolve some of these terrible conflicts. Thank you very much and good night.